Hello and welcome to Across the Pond WNBA. Myself and Michelle are back for another fun-filled week.
Mhm.
Last week we didn't even really talk about games. We will talk about some aspects of some games this week. There was just so much to talk about last week, and we do have a lot more to talk about this week. First of all, though, big shout out to Jasmine. She is probably a few hours away now, from heading out to Mitchell Arena to watch the Aces take on the Storm. That is going to be an amazing. I think that's going to be an amazing game tonight because two pretty feisty teams, to be fair, going at each other. So Jasmine is there. She's got her media credential. She'll be in the press box. So if you do see her tonight, then do say hi. And then we're recording Across the Pond Aces on Sunday. So we'll probably put that out Sunday night. So you will get to hear all about the Seattle game on Sunday. So don't forget to check that out. Michelle, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. I'm just enjoying all of the press around the WNBA. Some of it is quite hilarious. Some of it's disappointing, but at the end of the day, just seeing so many people talking about the league and where it's going, I'm excited. We've been
It
waiting
is
on
good.
this day for a while.
We have, and we have some. We got comments this week. We had some comments last week. We got some comments this week. Um, somebody mentioned that I should have a shave. I'm kind of post COVID and probably still being a bit lazy from being post COVID. But I did say that my wife does agree that I should have a shave. You got a nice comment though. You got a comment from one of your former Tennessee teammates, Carly McGee, and she said, "Great commentary, Snowbird."
That's definitely some Tennessee Lady Vols for life. Glad to see we have a lot of them watching this show. Want to keep that up. Keep spreading this love for the WNBA.
Yes, definitely. It's been a good week. We've had some great matchups, and like you said, there's been lots of media around the WNBA this week, for some good stuff, for some bad stuff, and some bits in between, so, like some actual basketball that was being played, which I think sometimes people forget actually happens now. I remember, like in Formula One years ago, like Michael Schumacher would win every race and it would just be like, "So anything else happen?" It's just like right over. I like to make comments and, sometimes they don't land that well, we all do it, and you're trying to be funny, you're trying to be jovial, or, you're in some people's case, just trying to be an ass. Pat McAfee, this week, probably king of the ass clowns, probably, decided to call Caitlin Clark a white. I have to say, it didn't land well whatsoever, quite rightly. He has since apologized, which, yeah, he should have. But is like this guy has a platform, a
Yeah.
big platform. He goes out of his way to cause controversy and he kind of revels in it, let's be honest. And I think he's probably apologized a bunch of times. But he still comes out with this stuff because it gives him column inches, it gives him airtime.
Yeah.
Like CNN are talking about him. When does CNN ever talk about Pat McAfee? Really? Um, is people or are people? Because I mean, we talked about Stephen A. before we started recording. There are men in the industry who have massive platforms. Are they, with comments like this, are they kind of letting not only themselves down, but also, you know, really disrespecting the WNBA in a massive way? Because we already seen a reporter in Indiana get fired. And well, not fired, but taken away from covering the Indiana Fever this season. And I mean that happened quite quickly.
Two things. First is I'm going to give him Charlemagne the God's Donkey of the Day. That's an award here in the US for some of the dumbest idiotic things you could do. I think um I think he made the mistake of believing that some of the comments that have been around since the WNBA's inceptions. These comments have been around for a while. I'll be honest. I'm not shocked or surprised. I I think we're in that I keep saying the day of the woman is here, where you can't make those comments and get away with it. You can't make those comments and keep your platform. And a lot of people are doing that. They're taking the hottest topics that are out right now and they're making them controversial because let's be honest, salacious stuff sells. It's getting the likes, it's getting the views. And so I understand the concept behind what he was trying to do, but I also wonder if we're in an age where we have influencers and people who have power and influence who are leveraging that and destroying people for their own good or for their platform to grow. And as a society, are we okay with that? I think when it comes to Caitlin Clark, hell to the no. You got a lot of feminist groups that are standing up. They and the sad part is they have the power to get him fired. And and I think that's why you see him profusely apologizing versus had this happened just 3 years ago, wouldn't have even been a topic. And I think
Wouldn't it be the
that is
story?
that part. And I think that's the difference between where we are right now and where we've been. But we said this day was coming for a very long time. And I think a lot of people are bandwagon and jumping onto the WNBA now and covering it and all these different things who wouldn't have mentioned it or said a word before. And they don't know the history. They don't know where the game is. They're just assuming that it's still something that you could dog and trash and say whatever about. That day's gone. And I think, unfortunately, he's going to be one of those people that has to apologize and is facing a lot of ridicule and is gonna be an example for others to kind of watch what they say in terms of how they talk about the league as players, etcetera, because at the end of the day, anything that messes with the money, it can get you fired. And comments like that, when you have a league that is blowing up in terms of all the opportunities financially that are available to it. We talked about the media deal that'll be done at the end of the season. Do you think the league, which is tied to the NBA, is going to let you destroy that? Sir, you won't have a job.
Yeah, it's one of these ones where, like, you know that there's people out there in the media that, they just say things and, whether they're trying to offend people or not, they say stuff and it's just stupid. Like, it just
Clickbait.
clickbait, yeah. But I think it's worse than clickbait because it is just stupid. And when I would never, ever call anyone that. Like, even when I was saying it, when I was quoting it, like, I felt uncomfortable, and I didn't really wanna say it, but I'm saying it because I'm quoting what he actually said. Pat McAfee, great on WWE. I'm sure he's, like, a great color commentator. I don't watch it, but I'm sure he's nice. I'm sure he's good at it. But he shouldn't be commenting on the WNBA because he's only there, like you say, he's only at that game because that is the big thing just now. Like, the viewership is insane going up just now, and that Chicago Fever game was, like, the most watched game of the season so far,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, "That's the positive." The positive is we have eyes, and people are watching these games. What potentially could turn people away is people making comments like that because parents will see that and they'll be like, "I don't really want my kids, like, listening to that,
Yeah.
like, kind of rhetoric." So, I think the WNBA, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the last thing that they want is someone like that in their orbit. So,
Yeah.
let's get him out of there. Yes, there's a big deal with ESPN and stuff, so let's, yeah. I can see, like, I don't even think it has to be feminist groups that get him fired. I think just, like, anyone with common sense.
But do we but is common sense common? Because I will say this,
Well,
if salacious things are what sell, I mean, we know many companies that are built on that. They're gonna cross that line, and they're gonna see how far they can push it in order to get those rebels and those young kids that wanna rebel into their orbit. So, it's kind of like the common sense thing is a parent doesn't want it, but what does the kid want? Which is the consumer that they're targeting. They want to
true.
rebel. So in
Yeah.
all honesty, when you think business, the target consumer is the younger one, not the parent. So I don't know that they're going I think part of it is, yes, he's getting a lot of heat, but is he getting heat where they're getting more viewership? He's getting more followers? Because that's gonna be the question as to whether they let him go or not. Is Are people unfollowing the WWE? Are they unfollowing him? Because then it's like, "Oh, okay, this went too far." But if that's not happening, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I think it was Piers Morgan. I can't believe I'm gonna quote Piers Morgan. I'm sure it's Piers Morgan, obviously former News of the World editor. News of the World newspaper is no longer around, by
Mhm.
the way, for a lot of bad things that they did, phone hacking and so forth. But like one of the things Piers Morgan has always said, like if there's news and it's salacious, then you put it on the front page
Yes,
because you
that's
like
those
you
papers.
that's what sells
Yep,
newspapers. Now, obviously newspapers don't sell that much nowadays compared to back in the 90s.
it went online.
They've all went online. But like if you turn on your computer and you turn up like you turn on, I don't know, I've got like Apple News or whatever, and I turn it on and suddenly like first thing I see is like Pat McAfee said or Stephen A has said, and yeah, or Stephen A got his self ripped one. But like you're gonna go read it. You're gonna find out what that was because it's
Yep,
obviously everything. I mean, let's be honest, everything nowadays could be classed as clickbait. To be fair,
yes. It's unfortunately, it sells,
it does. It does. Now,
it always
uh,
has.
no, uh, the foul, that foul that we've been talking, everyone's been talking about all week. But I want to talk about a foul first of all that happened 2 weeks ago, and that was Alyssa Thomas on Angel Reese, where it was a flagrant foul. Reese stands up, plays on, and in a news conference is like, "Well, you know what? Thank you, Alyssa Thomas. That I now feel like I'm in the WNBA."
Mhm,
And I was like, I was kind of like, that's her kind of welcome to the league moment. That's the moment that she is going to talk about for the rest of her life. Is the
yeah,
moment she realized she was in the WNBA was when Alyssa Thomas took her down. Fast forward, and we have a foul on Caitlin Clark.
mhm.
And in all fairness, this foul was egregious. Like this is Carter has been in trouble before. I mean, let's be honest. She doesn't have the best of temperaments. But I was watching this game live. And I don't know about you, but like I had to like, sorry, what just happened?
That was her moment.
What cars?
No, Clark's. Welcome. She just got welcomed. I thought they were both rough fouls. My thing is, did you not I mean, you kind of expect that, we've talked many times about me coming out trying to dunk and people were literally taking me out of the air, running up under me, letting me fall on my neck, my back, they didn't care, it's part of the game. You wanna dunk and we don't want you to, like, we're not letting some rookie do that. I think the way Reese handled it and understood that this is a rite of passage, it says a lot to her maturity and how she handles things because she's gonna talk some trash too, but she understands that there's some clapback that comes from that. I think Clark understands that too, and the foul was egregious for both of them, but the expectation is as you transition to the league with bigger, faster, stronger people, this is going to happen. It's not the same, and it's how do you wanna handle that because Clark has a lot of eyes on her. So, saying that's not a part of basketball is not true. That is a part of basketball. It has always been men and women's from Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. Like they've had their moments between the bad boys and the Chicago Bulls, the Boston Celtics, the LA Lakers. It doesn't matter who. Candace Parker had that when she came into the league and got into it with the I'm gonna call them the Detroit Bad Girls, because she had her moment as well, where it's welcome to the league. You're going to have to prove yourself. If everyone's saying you're, the next best thing, you're going to be challenged and pushed to those levels. And I think Clark is handling as well as can be expected. Reese as well. I think the biggest component is almost I had a friend, Ashley Robinson, who said this is a LeBron-like moment where she just happens to have the eyes of the world on her. And how she handles that, how she plays into it will be a big deal. I think she's gonna be great. She's gonna be fine. I told you she's gonna have a long career. I think it's gonna be some of that media training around how to handle those moments instead of saying maybe that's not a part of basketball, understanding that it is. And also not showing that it got to you. Because I felt like by saying that, you're showing that it got to you. So guess what every team is going to do? Like, on my team, on Ashley's team, that's what we did. You hit someone on my team, they knew they didn't have to respond. I was gonna take care of you because you were gonna protect. Like, it's Cheryl Swoops, Tina Thompson, Jeanette Arcane, Cynthia Cooper. I wish you would. I wish you would put your hands on one of my teammates. I'm coming for you, and they knew it. I think Caitlin doesn't have that to a certain extent, but I also said I think part of that is the team building. So when we talk about these fouls, I think when the team is coming out and they're dancing and you walk past them like you're better than that or you don't want to do that, you're telling your team that, it's a team. Even if I'm not going to dance, I was never a dancer. I'm gonna stand there and bob my head and just sit and watch. I don't have to dance and all of that stuff. I think she has to find that lane where, she's building those relationships, and I also think the coach has to kinda help with that too, and some of the, I was talking to someone the other day around as Caitlin gets there, who's that veteran that has taken her under that wing? I think Aaliyah Boston's in her 2nd year, but that veteran at that 5, 6-year mark, that can really help her along and include her without making her feel like she has to assimilate to everything that they do.
Yeah.
That's gonna help her with the fouls, and I think it'll also help the fans to kinda see them bringing her along, and it's gonna happen. It's only been a couple of weeks, guys. We got time.
Yeah, I mean, we're early. On the physicalness of basketball as a whole. Now,
Mhm.
I grew up in the '90s. You grew up in the '90s. Basketball. I remember getting elbows in the head. I'm a short guy, so
Ooh.
that's why. But I remember getting elbows in the head from guys pivoting or going up and people coming under you and this kind of stuff. And I seen probably one of the stupidest comments I think I've ever seen in my life this week. And it basically read as, I mean, everyone's going after Caitlyn. Every player's going after Caitlyn. Like, this is obscene. This is terrible. You never seen anyone going after Jordan or Bird or Magic or blah 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 blah.
Who said that? They were born yesterday?
Well, they might have been. So last week we talked about knowing your WNBA history. But for some
Mhm.
people, it might be helpful if they knew their NBA history as well. I'm
Some
sorry, but Jordan in his rookie year
did
was
go
getting
through that.
beaten up and down. And actually, I think it was his first 3 years until that New York Knicks game where he just suddenly snapped and was like, he became Michael Jordan.
Yep.
And like, I'm just like that. Even LeBron, Kobe,
Mhm.
Kevin Garnett, like all those guys.
Yeah.
And like you were talking about big matchups, big physical matchups. The reason Isaiah Thomas did not play in the dream team is because Michael Jordan
Yes.
didn't like him and didn't want him anywhere near that dream team.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but that is the fact because the game was so physical and Jordan felt that Isaiah was a dirty player and didn't want him be anywhere near him. And the fact that like Caitlin Clark and all of these rookies are getting beaten up and down the place. It happens every goddamn year.
That
Every
part.
rookie, every and it sometimes it's not rookies. Sometimes it's vets as well. Like we've we've been watching. I've been watching WNBA for properly for like 5 6 years, and I have seen some pretty
Yeah.
egregious fouls that don't even get called, and you're
That
kind of
part.
like, but they just get up and get on with it because you play to the whistle. One thing that I have seen Caitlin Clark do a lot of is looking at the ref and going, "You're not calling that." Like, and whereas you see Angel Reese get up
Yeah.
and get on with it.
Right.
And I think talking about like the media part
Mhm.
and what to say and when to say it and who to, I think that that has to come now. She did this in college. She did go at the refs in college, so this isn't a new thing for Caitlin Clark. But I do think, like in the WNBA, she needs to stop going at refs because I remember Luka Doncic doing it when he was first came into the NBA,
Yeah.
and the refs turned around and said, "Mate, what foul? Go away! Like, go away!" They just wouldn't even entertain him, and I think Caitlin is not getting that treatment entirely, but I
Mhm.
think they are kinda like, "Just come on, get up, go."
I think that's what they want. She's not if we wanna go a little deeper, there's so many layers to the WNBA right now. Angel Reese gets kicked out for nothing, but Caitlin Clark won't, but they're both in the top, what, for this rookie class? What's the difference between the 2? One has a $30 million deal with a Nike tag behind them, and it's the face of the league. They're pushing the aces, like we'll talk about later, off of TV for a team that is losing every game. That should tell you that the media dynamic matters, and she does have advantages that other people don't have, like Angel Reese, but that's that toughness where she's gonna get up and just play. I think I think Clark will get there. She will get there, hopefully. Or either they're gonna kinda have her as the are you gonna be like they like to call LeBron the crybaby. I go, "He's only the king." We get it right. But I think she's gonna get the haters who label her similarly, and that's why there's that dialogue and there's this shift between, people who love her and people who are like, "I don't get it. Like, why is she getting all of this stuff when we haven't seen her win?" And she hasn't shown that she has that dog in her. And she does have the dog in her. It just hasn't equated to winning yet. And so when she's getting treated differently than the other players who have, I think that's where a lot of that comes from. The media is gonna blow it up as they should. They should be on TV. I think, like I said, it's just part of the transition. She's gonna get there. The physicality of the league is not gonna change, so if she does not get there, I think it will hurt her legacy.
Yeah. I think, yeah, she needs to adjust quite quickly to this because I think it could hurt and there's also the I mean, the thing with the Carter foul was that I was concerned about was an injury
Injuries
because
only. Yep.
that kinda thing can really, that one bad injury, I mean, I don't know, we've seen it, and it was an accident with Gordon Hayward,
Yeah.
whose career was flying.
Yeah.
First game he played for Boston, broke his ankle in 2 places and his leg, and
Yeah.
I think in 2
Cardoso.
places as well, or Cardosa. I mean, it it can be really dangerous. So, like, I mean, the Carter foul, I think, yeah, I mean, that was horrendous. That was really bad, and I don't wanna see it,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I understand that this is a physical game,
Yeah.
and I think, it's part of the game, and if
It
you
is.
take that part of the game out, then I do think if you take the physical, because like, my complaint with the NBA for years is they're too soft,
Everyone's
because
saying that now.
I grew up in the '90s where, like, Karl Malone would go at Charles Barkley,
Yeah.
Barkley would go at Rodman, like, and, like, you would they wouldn't fight, but it was very, very physical. Whereas I think the WNBA is like that now, and that's why I like the WNBA so much because it is physical, and people do, like, jump after 50-50 balls that are, like, in midair, and that's what I wanna see. When I see, like, 100,000 points being scored in an all-star game in the NBA, like, I'm sorry, but that's really boring. If I wanna do that, if I wanna see that, I could just go out to the basket out the back and do that myself.
I think you hit a very big point, is when you're making 30 million and you have big companies behind you, you get an advantage on calls like that, that fans who are knowledgeable and who know the game are gonna call you out on. It's like, back when you had those rivalries in the NBA, there was no social media.
No,
So you
there
didn't
was not.
have 10, 15, 20,000 people calling you out on the fact that the reffing differs depending on the endorsements and what you bring to the league. Now you do. So it'll be interesting to see what is the evolution of the game in terms of that. how do they I think right now is, okay, we're gonna control the narrative. It's, and that can play a part in it, but I think it has to evolve if you are to kind of change that dialogue across the board because it's gonna be a lot of call outs. There are gonna be a lot of people who but the other part is this, doesn't matter if you didn't like the file, doesn't matter if you hate Caitlin Clark or love her. If you're talking about her, it's salacious, it's first page news.
Yeah, it is indeed. What do we think about Carter? She's come under a lot of scrutiny this week, and I
Man.
think a lot of her teammates have kinda come out and said, "Look, this is going too far now."
Yes, it is.
And they are pointing the finger at the Caitlin Clark effect fans
Mhm.
because it really is coming from those quarters.
Yeah.
Is she being hard done by? I mean, she does obviously she had issues in Atlanta
Yeah.
and these kind of things. So I mean, she does have history,
Mhm.
but same time, some of the stuff being said on social media
It's
is
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Yeah,
It is. It is ridiculous. I think one of the things we'll notice is, um, for me, when it gets racial, that's ridiculous. Absolutely makes no sense to go there. Or when it becomes an absolute where it's everyone of color plays that way or does this or that, that's another issue. I think when you bring up her past, Kennedy Clark is that player, period. That's why she's on the team. That's you want a protector? You look for a Kennedy Clark. Like at the end of the day, I'm not saying that it was not egregious. I'm not saying that it wasn't a bad file. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying she's the protector on her team. Sometimes she's going to take it too far. Could that lead to an injury? I pray that's not her intent. I
yeah,
really hope that's not her intent. I hope her intent is simply to protect and say, hey, you're not going to come at my teammates like this, or you're not going to talk to my teammates like this. And one of my concerns is we hear a lot of people assuming they know her intent
yeah,
because of past incidents or this or that. I don't know a player that hasn't gotten into it with a ref or another player. There
yeah,
are not very many. I don't care who you are and what level you're on. Like we said, Caitlin Clark has a history with the refs, but we don't see anyone labeling her and what
exactly.
she says and does. It's always seen as, "Oh, no, that's passion, she's passionate." But when it's someone else, it's, "Oh, no, that's, ugly. That's ridiculous, you're trying to hurt someone." And I'm not saying, what she did was right because what she it could have led to an injury.
Yeah,
Same with Angel Reese, but I go, "Look at the response." It was the same Angel could have gotten hurt. She caught an elbow in the neck midair. I have a C5, C6 fusion in my neck. I didn't get up, like, it's just like, this is part of the game. Let's see what's wrong. Let's keep playing. Let's go on. It happens. I think how you respond matters. And as you play longer and longer, because probably when I was younger, I was going to get up swinging. Let's just be honest. As
I
I
can
got
imagine.
older, oh, it definitely, definitely get up swinging. As I got older, you also understood that when you respond, you give away your power. And there are other ways to get things done. So you become more strategic and you learn. I think both of them are in that phase where they're going to have to learn a lot faster. They're not going to be able to wait until that 5 and 6 year mark. They got to get there a lot faster. And they will. Hopefully, the fans will take that racial part, the labeling, the absolutes out of it and just see two competitors playing. And if someone is trying to injure, I think they should be dealt with accordingly.
Yeah.
Be fined, they should be suspended, etc. Um, and I think all players should be treated the same across these refs. And we are seeing differences and we're seeing advantages where Angels getting kicked off for saying something and then other players are still on the court. I think there are a lot of things that have to be dealt with. But like I said, the WNBA is under this they're in a fishbowl and everyone's looking at them right now. So there are a lot of little things that are going to be tweaked and worked on, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, the fishbowl is a great analogy because it is like all the eyes are on. Like you know, there's an NBA finals going on right now, right?
You couldn't tell by social media.
Like this is like the insane thing. Like, there's an
Game 1
NBA
was
finals
terrible. I was so hot.
and, you know, it's like sorry, what NBA finals? Like, it's this is the thing, right? It's the start of the season. If this is what the start of the season is like, God knows what the end's gonna be like. It is gonna be insane. But I will say if the Fever keep going the way they're going, they won't be in the postseason. That's for sure.
I don't think anyone
Uh,
expected them to be in the postseason. Okay, the new fans expected them to do it. Hell, the realistic people who actually understand sports, there is no way anyone expected them to be in the playoffs.
no.
We were like, maybe they make rock bottom to into the playoffs, but no one was
Yeah.
expecting them to be a competitor.
Yeah, not no winning championship, sorry. Now there was a debut in that game, with that foul, and Camila Cardosa, oh
Yes.
my god, she burst onto scene. Now she played limited minutes, she is
Yes.
just coming back from injury, so she is, on a kind of minutes limit,
Ooh,
but she came on and
ooh.
she was impactful. Like, she gave Aliyah Boston
Yeah,
I think probably for the first time, Aliyah Boston looked quite uncomfortable going up and down the floor.
she did. That was one of the things I actually watched a lot of the highlights and play by plays. 'Cause I think she had 11 points
Yeah,
in her limited minutes. I love to see the footwork. I love how they passed the ball to her up high so she could keep it up high and just finish. The way she moves and the space that she takes up around the basket, it's almost there's a finesse to it where usually it's a power when you see the men's game or that dynamic. She's just it's all finesse. She keeps it high. Her teammates are always finding and looking for her. And although this was her first game, I was like, if she keeps her head on straight, which I believe she will, coming out of Don's program, she has the maturity and all of those things. She is going to be a beast that maybe no one has given her the proper credit for what she's going to be in this league. On both ends of the floor, I think she's going to be one of those bigger players that maybe goes under the radar because everyone's talking about the other rookies. But
yeah.
that young lady is gonna do some huge things. I think if she had more minutes, they win that game.
I agree actually, yeah. I think if she was on the floor more obviously she's come back from injury, so that's
Yes.
we would rather, you know,
Take your
it
time.
was done this way and, we can have a longer season seeing
Absolutely.
her. So but I thought she was phenomenal, and it's like because I watched this game and I'm kind of looking at Angel Reese and I'm looking at Caitlin
Mhm.
Clark and Alea Boston and when Cardosa came on, I was like, "Oh, here we go." And the first couple of passes, I mean, you said about passing in high. The first couple of passes were kinda lowish,
Mhm.
and even I think it was Rebecca Lobo was like, "They need to get those passes
For
higher,
real.
get
For
them
real.
higher." And then as the game kinda progressed, it happened, and
Yes.
we seen her and you're right, the footwork is
Ooh,
phenomenal. Like, and her awareness
yes.
of where everyone is, her passing was pretty good. Uh, I I enjoyed watching her. I think you're right. I think she has a very long career ahead of her in the W. I
True.
think, and I think as well, like, because I seen her on the bench when she was off, and always talking,
Yes.
like always talking. And I always think that when you look at a bench and you see the people talking, they're the leaders.
Yep.
They're the ones. I mean, yeah, you have people talking, and they're having a laugh and a joke around, but I think, like, she is a real leader, and I think she's definitely one for the future of the WNBA.
I agree. I think I was so impressed with her. And I think you brought up a very important point is that is the first time we've seen Boston uncomfortable because now she's having to figure out, okay, how do I play this? Whereas probably I know for me, I'm fronting her all day. You're gonna throw that ball over my head, um, and sandwich her from behind. But also, if you don't have to double, you don't want to. I think they both teams are gonna learn from it because Camilla's gonna continue to get better. And you got to remember, we're also talking about the Fever who are still trying to find their way and figure out who they're going to be on the defensive and offensive end of the floor. So, and they're leaving a lot of that for Boston to do on her own and to figure out on her own. And they both come from the same school, so they're also they have the
Yeah,
same strategy, same coach from college. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they develop and evolve as professionals moving forward throughout this season. But Cardosa has an amazing future, and we already know. We've already said Boston's a beast. So
yeah.
I think it's
Boston
going to be
showed
their
up
team.
last year.
Yeah, their team is gonna be the pieces that kinda differentiate differentiate the 2 of them.
One thing I will say about Indiana, a lot has been said about coaching, about
Mhm.
Caitlin, and about the rest of her teammates and stuff, and that kind of lack of team chemistry.
Yes.
One thing that really needs to be pointed out is this week was the first week since the season started that they had a training day
Yeah.
because they weren't traveling, they didn't have a game, and basically since the start of the season, they've either been travel on the road or at a game. So that like this week was the first week that the players actually got together and actually had a proper training session since the season started. And I think like there's a lot to be said about team chemistry. And if you don't have the opportunity to train with each other, learn, I mean, learning in a game is one thing,
Mhm.
but I do think it helps massively to slow the game right down in training and work through things. And the Fever haven't had that opportunity until this week.
True, outside of training camp, um, now that they got some games under their belt, to be able to get back in your gym and practice, mind being mindful that you probably have a game in a day or 2, and you probably wanna rest too. It's so hard to juggle those things. It's why I say give these rookies grace. Give them grace. They're doing a lot of this on the fly, and it's easy to burn out. It's easy to get overwhelmed mentally. So I'm glad she gets a minute to just kind of be back home, maybe in her new apartment, but somewhere familiar where she can kind of just sit down and relax. And hopefully, at some point with the Olympic break, they can kind of have those team outings and things like that. She'll probably be on the Olympic team, but but it'll give her a break away from the WNBA for a while to kinda look back and see, "Hey, what are some of the things I can focus on?" And something as simple as sending a text while you're at the Olympics to your teammates, including them in that process. I think those are things that can be done to kinda bridge that gap, and hopefully her PR, her media team are helping her with some of those things because, unfortunately, when you're the face of the league, not that it's fair, I'm not saying it's fair, but someone has to be in her ear helping her bring them along because she's a once in a lifetime type of player, which means, kind of like when LeBron first came out, there were people that were saying he wasn't going to play on his own team. If you guys remember that, like his own teammates were doing that, and he had to find a way to bring them along too. She's going to have to do that. And if she does, they're going to be fine.
Yeah. All this talk about practice just got me thinking of Allen Iverson. We're talking about
Yes.
practice. You're asking me about practice.
Oh, I
Oh,
love Allen Iverson. I do.
he, he is a guy.
Oh,
Um, one of my solid player. I loved Allen Iverson, but yeah, we were talking about practice, and I just started getting flashbacks to that press
that is one of my
conference.
favorite moments ever.
I think it's like everyone's, but yeah, I think
Ooh, that
it's
boy is fun.
nah, I do. I'd like a bit of Allen Iverson. Um, we're talking about games and we're talking about lots of things kind of going on, lack of practice, like just media appearances, doing this, that, and everything else. One thing that has been pretty good, I think, for the last few years is the schedule kind of is for TV and for nationally televised games. It's usually been kind of spread out
Yeah,
between the teams to a certain extent. Now, I will say that obviously last year the Aces and Liberty probably did eat up a lot of those games,
yes,
nationally televised games, because they were expected to be the two at the end,
yes.
and so that kind of makes sense. One thing that we have seen this week, and I got an email from the WNBA, and don't worry, I didn't get in trouble. It's fine.
Oh, Lord,
Um,
start.
I know it happens, but not this time. Uh, The Indiana and Chicago game, which I find interesting, that's the Indiana-Chicago game after what's just happened, will now be televised by ESPN instead of NBA TV, and the game will be changed to 4 PM Eastern instead of 3. So they're changing the time, changing where it's gonna be shown. The Las Vegas Aces Washington game will no longer be televised on ESPN or anywhere else.
That's a mess.
That,
That's a
like, I just don't now they're not being swapped out because these are on separate weekends, but they've not said what they're gonna put in place of the Las Vegas game on the 29th of June. So, like, I know the Washington Mystics are not having the best of seasons, like, that much is obvious. You know, they're down Elena Delle Donne,
Mhm.
they lost Natasha Cloud, like, they lost a big chunk of their team. So I get that they're not great maybe to watch as a marquee matchup for that weekend, but still, it's the Aces. It's the defending champions, the team that are going for the three-peat, and you will not put them on TV? What the heck is up with that?
I honestly, I have no earthly idea what's going on. I get why Indiana is being put on. Even when you're losing, you got a lot of fans, so at the end of the day, viewership is everything, and it's needed to kinda make these endorsements. It's gonna be helpful to the CBA after the season, so we need that. We do need that. If you're gonna take the Aces game off with Delle Donne being out, okay. Hopefully they'll find another game to put in that slot between, 2 competitive teams that can bring some more viewership to, Seattle or some of these other teams with these young players and some of the veterans that people could fall in love with, and if they're back to back, that's helpful because they're gonna be watching the first game. Only because it's the Mystics will I say I kinda get it. At the same time, I don't, because as a fan, I am biased, and I have always been honest about my bias. Um, this is the defending championships going for a three-peat, and if this was an NBA team that was doing the same thing, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't matter if it was a blowout. People are gonna still sit there and watch their favorite teams. So, they gotta figure that out, and there may be reasons that we don't know as to why, so I'm just gonna leave it at, we don't have that information, we're not
No, we
privy to
don't.
it, but, it's a myth.
We they just sent an email and it literally just says that. There is another game it talks about as well. But, like, yeah, they don't give any reasons behind it because obviously they're the WNBA, they don't have to. But, yeah, I just thought, it's when there's a team going for a three-peat, an unprecedented three-peat, and if there was ever a team that could do it.
Wait, there was a four-peat. This is not
Oh,
unprecedented,
well, there's
because
yeah,
Asia's trying to break that Houston Comets record.
yeah, she's trying to beat the Comets, but
Four-peat.
four-peat, that'll be next year. Um, yeah, we'll have to go for a 5. That's
Yeah,
that'd
in
be
order
fun.
to beat it, she gotta get 5.
Gotta get 5. That'll be fun. It's an interesting couple of years in
That would
Vegas, let's
kinda
be
be
honest.
hard, I don't know how I feel about that.
Did you know how you
Come on, I was drafted to the Comets, come on.
I know. I know. I
That would
feel
be
bad.
emotional.
That'll be a bit emotional. Last question, or topic. We've seen Angel Reese and Cardosa now play together. Uh, I feel like, and we've got a very small sample size, but do you think their impact together, or like what's had bigger impact? Them playing together in a small sample size, or Caitlin Clark on the Fever?
Ooh, you gotta be more specific, because if you're talking in terms of fan base,
Oh no,
endorsements,
I'm talking on
just
in
play.
terms of getting results to the end of the season. Like who's going to be more impactful? Because
Chicago. Chicago.
yeah,
And I know y'all not gonna like that I said that. I'm sorry, Clark fans. They are, and it's nothing against Clark. It is not.
oh,
is nothing. It's when I'm looking at these 2 teams and how they stack up because people who know their history know all of these players. Chicago has a better team, but they are both rebuilding. But when you have Reese and Cardoso on the same team, don't get me wrong, you got Clark and Boston, Erica Wheeler. They have some pieces in Indiana, and I'm not saying that the second half they won't put it together and turn it on. I'm saying it may be too late. Their record is what is it, 0 and 8 or 1 and 8?
1-8, yeah.
1 and 8, and I think Chicago's like 3 or something, like they're half and half. So they have a better chance of actually making the playoffs. Like, there are teams that make the playoffs at 50 and a 500 winning percentage. So when I'm just looking at the numbers, nothing else, Chicago right now has the advantage because winning those games early in the season matters. And right now, Indiana isn't winning.
So I know I said that was your
They
last
have a
question.
full team. They have a full team.
They
Mind you,
do.
Cardoso's just coming back.
She is. And that's the thing. That's why I said small sample size. Indiana are 2-9 right now. My
2 and 9.
apologies. Um, and Chicago 4-5. So
That's
uh,
postseason numbers.
with the Mystics being 0-10. But a team that we haven't mentioned, and I just want to give them a shout out because I think the job that they're doing, because of all this noise
Yeah.
around Indiana, Chicago, and like everything that's happened this week, has anyone noticed that the Connecticut Sun just keep winning and are now 9-0?
But are we
But this
surprised?
happens every year. It happens
Thank you.
every year
Thank you. You
because
said it before I could.
dude, that like because that's where I was going with it. I was like, because this team now I know a former Sun from last year has just landed in Vegas, Tiffany Hayes, and I'm happy to see that. But like this Sun team just are relentless. And to see them 9-0 kinda scares me as an Aces fan because, I mean, it always scared me when we played them because you always knew it was gonna be a heck of a game, but they have, again, as they have every year, this really quiet confidence that they're just gonna go and play, and then when it comes to playoff time, you go, "Oh, hang on, Connecticut Sun are up here. What's going on here?"
Again,
Again.
you gotta give a ton of credit to the coach.
Yeah.
That coaching staff has a system in place. They have players who have bought in and who've been there for extended periods of time, so they understand what winning takes, what it's like, and they're in the middle of nowhere, so they don't mind practicing. There's nothing else to do. Okay.
There's a
That is
casino.
not why they're winning. That is not why they're winning. I'm joking, guys. They got Dewana Bonner. They got some pieces that are unbelievable on this team. I've always been a fan of this team. We thought they were gonna knock out New York last year, the
Yeah.
Chicago battle every year. It's a phenomenal team, phenomenal coaching staff. Are they going to get there? I think so. I think so. I don't want them to be that team that gets there every year and never like eclipses and gets that win. They're gonna cause trouble for a lot of people in the league. I'm interested in seeing that Commissioner's Cup again and seeing if it is the Aces and the Sun and what happens again, because that has been a storyline as well.
Yeah. What do you think about the new format for the Commissioner's Cup, with it just being over a 2-week period rather than, from pretty much the opening tip of the season? I mean, the games have still been competitive. I mean, that's what the argument would be. The argument would be, well, if the games weren't competitive, it's not worked. But those games at the start of the season have still been really, really competitive.
I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I love the old format because you had to show up every night and play, and that's what
Yeah.
I loved is it forced that. There were no nights off, there was no resting players because people wanted that extra money, and it's what made the games better. So, you didn't have people just sitting out. The new format, just off the top of my head, I see a ton of pros and cons, and I don't know if at some point it doesn't become more beneficial to still rest people.
I think we'll probably see. I mean, I think like every couple of years we'll see some sort of change in the format of it. Like, I don't think it's something that's gonna stand still for too long. They've tried that old format for what, 2, 3 years now.
Yeah.
So they're just trying it a different way.
Yeah.
But like I say, I think as long as those games at the start of the season, that first month, are still competitive, then that's fine. But I think as soon as, like you say, they start resting players and stuff, because you shouldn't really be resting players at the beginning of a season, like unless there's an injury or something along those lines.
Yeah,
But like, if your team's 100% fit, then 100% that team should be playing.
200. I agree with you with 200%. I go, you have to also remember this is the NBA. It isn't 80 games. It was 30 to 40 games
Yeah.
a season in a very short period of time where all of these games count. And so there wasn't as much of that in the WNBA simply because of the way it was set up to begin with. So I think as salaries go up and as players make more money, does the Commissioner's Cup hold as much weight? I think there are a lot of
Mm,
things to think about. I think with the WNBA, as long as it's a condensed season and those games matter, also knowing we have an Olympic break, it's gonna be about a month that they're gonna be off. That means the game should be competitive anyway, so to test it during an Olympic year didn't make sense to me, because I was like, there's a huge break in the middle of the season, which is gonna give people a rest period. So it'll just be interesting to see how it plays out. I feel like maybe if they do it 2 years in a row, but for me, go back to the old way.
yeah,
Go back to the way
I
it was.
I like the old way, to be fair.
But I have to say, this CBA is going to change a lot of things. This agreement that happens in the off season could change so much. So who knows?
We need to get like a CBA analyst to
Yeah,
come on the show and break it all down, because
it's a lot.
sometimes that kind of stuff hurts my brain. But um, thank you for joining us this week, everyone. Please do comment on our social media feeds, send us emails. We will read them out quite happily. I have no shame. So, and yeah, maybe next week I'll have shaved. Um, that part
Don't
might not
let them
happen.
make you shave. You gotta do it because you want. Listen, if Rachel says shave, then that's another story. But the fans, if
Mm,
Rachel, if you shave, it's
uh,
because of Rachel, not because of the fans.
yeah. Or maybe this is how we get a sponsorship deal, because we
Bet.
get
There you
like,
go.
see, there we go. See, there
There
we
you
go.
go. Then
So
you'll clean it up.
we need Gillette, Harry's, Bic. I'm never. No, it's not happening. Is it Dollar something? Dollar Shave or
Oh,
something?
Dollar
Yeah,
Shave.
yeah. We need all them to come together and start bidding.
Mm. Send in
That could
free
work.
product and then
Yeah,
you clean it up and see
yeah. I
who's
could
the
clean
best.
it up, see which one was the best. I could do like Dollar Shave here, Harry's here, Gillette
No,
here.
mm-mm.
No,
Me and
no.
Rachel will veto that. Absolutely
Vetoed.
not.
Vetoed. Oh,
One, you use a different one each week, and over that period, I'm sure the fans will be more than happy to vote.
yes, that'll be our next poll. Thanks for that. But we are done for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. As I say, do comment on our social media. Do drop us emails, whatever you so desire. It's WNBA@atpsports.net. And we hope you enjoy this weekend's action and into next week. We will have the New York Liberty podcast next week, along with the Aces as well. And we will also be back next week. So we will check you then.